Hi, I'm Christine Benz from Morningstar.com. Some Medicare enrollees may see a big increase in their Medicare Part B premiums. Joining me to discuss this topic is Mark Miller. He's a Morningstar contributor. Mark, thank you so much for being here.
Good to be here, Christine.
Well, let's start by talking about the Social Security COLA adjustment, the cost of living increase that Social Security recipients receive. They're getting a very modest increase for 2017. Let's talk about that.
Right. So every year there's a cost of living adjustment that's made. It's tied to the Consumer Price Index, and it was just announced recently that the increase for next year is going to be 0.3 percentage point, so it's quite small. Last year's was 0. There's some issues running around in there about the way that inflation is measured in the general working population versus seniors. The big one really is that healthcare costs are, inflation is higher, and seniors are disproportionately affected by healthcare costs. So that's where this kind of tension is set up between the Social Security COLA and this being reflected in this Medicare issue.
Okay. One thing before we go over to talk about how this is affecting Medicare, there is that experimental CPI-W, which is meant to measure the consumption basket for older folks. What's the status of that, of incorporating that into the Social Security inflation adjustment?
It tends to run a little higher than the CPI-W.
Because of the healthcare expenses.
Yeah, it's not dramatically higher, and it actually bounces around from year to year. You can't say that consistently every year it dramatically outpaces the current index. But I think that whenever we get around to discussing Social Security reform, and I hope that's soon, this should be one of the issues that we talk about, is how do we get a better handle on the inflation issue and how we adjust benefits for it. I don't know that anybody's got the perfect answer for it yet, but certainly the CPI-E is one thing that's been pointed to as a way to go.
Okay. So let's move on and talk about how this COLA adjustment, modest as it is, affects the Medicare Part B premiums.
Right. So under federal law, we have something called the Hold Harmless provision that says that any current Social Security recipient who's also in Medicare, that you can't raise the Part B premium any more than the dollar amount of a Social Security increase. Now, the Medicare trustees already said earlier in the year they projected a pretty stiff increase in the Medicare Part B premium from roughly $120 now to $149. But because of what I was just saying, that 70% of Medicare enrollees are covered by the Hold Harmless.
They're not affected.
Yeah, so if you have that $5 monthly increase in your benefit, that means your Part B premium can only go up $5. The issue that comes up is for the other 30% who are not held harmless. That could include people who are on Medicare but haven't filed for Social Security yet. People who we've been telling for years here, delay your filing. Well, you should, but you're not now protected against that increase.
I see.
Or let's say many state and federal government employees who are not in the Social Security system but do use Medicare, again, not protected. So there's a bunch of folks who are not, roughly 30% of the Medicare population, that are not protected by this Hold Harmless provision. So they are at risk of a big increase. This is going to play out over the course of the fall. Number one, we haven't got the final number yet from Medicare on what the Part B number will be. They projected 149. It could come in a little lower. Also, last year, Congress stepped in at the 11th hour and passed something that ameliorated some of that increase. So instead, I don't remember the specific number, but it was brought down quite a bit.
It helped, yeah.
Yeah, it was still an increase, but not as big as it could have been. We might not know until the very end of the year exactly how these 30% of Medicare beneficiaries might be impacted by the combination of these three things: the COLA, the Part B premium, and what it might be done to soften the blow.
Okay, so wait and see. I guess if you're a senior potentially affected by this increase, I guess it may be a good reason to give your congressperson a call about this.
But also the good news is if you're in that 70%,
you're okay.
You're okay. What's going to happen is you're basically going to get no increase in your Social Security. That's the bad news.
Right.
You're not even going to get the 0.3% because it's going to go to your Part B premium, but at least you're not going to be saddled with a gigantic increase in your Part B premium next year.
Okay, Mark. Important news to keep an eye on. Thank you so much for being here to discuss it with us. Thanks for watching. I'm Christine Benz for Morningstar.com.